Hello, everybody. It is Monday, the 23rd of March, and I want to talk about a few things here. One is the idea that the AI is rewriting the Bible or spiritual texts in general. I want to talk about the clear misdirection that is in religion, in the religious teachings, especially in Christianity, the misdirection that will take us away from the truth. And and I want to talk about what might be the good news, the gospel. I want to talk about Neville Goddard and about Jesus, because the good news is actually in the Bible. And I also want to talk about the downside, because there is a downside. Everything has got two sides. And so does spiritual practice. Yeah, it has got an upside and a downside. And for us to be of sound mind and within reason, we need to know both sides. So that's what I want to talk about today. Now, let's start with AI rewriting spiritual texts. That has obviously started a storm whenever Harari said that in an interview. You know, that the AI should rewrite the Bible or the Torah or spiritual texts in general. And people like Greg Braden going up against it, others as well, of course, saying, we really must think about this, we must talk about this, whether in the future the AI should rewrite the Bible. And here's the conjurer's trick, the misdirection of attention. Sometime in the future, the AI will rewrite spiritual text. No, it's already doing it. It's happening all around you. It is happening now. And whilst we are discussing what might happen in the future, I said it's already happening. Now, I don't know what people expect, that, they will write new physical books and maybe do away with the old ones. The Vatican will have to build a new tunnel to store all the old texts, whilst the new distortions are being sold on Amazon. That is not what is happening. And to be quite honest, in this generation now, they don't read books. How many read books? They wouldn't know a book if it fell on them. They consume content on the internet, and as they indiscriminately consume it. And that is where the spiritual writings are rewritten, in AI videos, not in physical books. They might do that after a while, but right now it's really not worth the effort, because nobody's ever picking up a book anyway to look at the original. Yeah? So, I mean, it can exist in this world, and it's fine, because nobody will ever see it. I've just watched a video with somebody who was a follower of Neville Goddard, and I have noticed it myself. There's AI-generated videos that even use Neville Goddard's voice, yeah? But Neville Goddard is saying things he never said and never would have said in those teachings, yeah? They pretend to be original talks that were given by Neville Goddard, and there's stuff in there he would have never said. Neville Goddard never ever spoke about raising vibrations. I don't think he even mentioned the word vibration. Didn't talk about chakras, stuff like that. But that is what you will find in the AI videos. And it's not just Neville Goddard that is being distorted. It is, all those AI videos that say, Neville Goddard said, Madame Blavatsky said, Alan Watts said, Jesus said. Yeah, the internet is full of them. And then saying things that these persons never said. So yes, the rewriting of spiritual text is already happening. The rewriting of spiritual lectures are already happening. That's already happening. And it is already being consumed by the masses. on the internet. So really, that discussion of if it might happen in the future, forget about it. You're thinking about the future and you're not seeing the now. Conjurer's trick, misdirection. And the one thing that is really common to all these AI videos is that every one of them is driving this thing in the same direction, and that is New Age. Every one. And here is really the first part where we are being misdirected away from the truth, because people like, especially Neville Goddard, I want to talk about him today. He had a truth. He didn't see the fullness of the truth, but he definitely had a truth. He knew something that was actually working. You're being misdirected away from the truth. In the New Age teaching, as I said, it is all about high vibrations. It is about getting out of fear. It is about finding some way of raising your vibrations, and when your vibrations raise, you feel good. Yeah? Another thing that I've heard, which is attached to that, is obviously the use of psychedelics as a way of raising your vibrations and making yourself feel good. The problem, there's two problems with that, actually. One is the state never lasts. Yeah, your own vibrational high state does never last. You need to perform a practice, whether that's meditation or if you're taking drugs, and the state will only last as long as you're in the meditation or if the drugs wear off. And then your little bubble bursts, because that's what you're in. You're floating in a little energetic bubble, detached from reality. That is exactly what they're driving you into little pink bubbles, in which you then float into a higher state of consciousness, detached from the reality of this world. You're on a higher state of consciousness. No, you're not. You're in a delusional bubble, floating about somewhere. And you're doing this until your bubble bursts, which it will after a while. And then you have to come back down to earth. And the most important thing about all of this is that when you come back to reality, as you will, reality has not changed. Your little excursion in your little bubble did not actually change reality. It changed nothing. Didn't change you, did not change reality. It had no effect on anything, which is exactly why they want you in those bubbles, so that you do not participate in the creation of this world. Those that float in their little pink bubbles are non-player characters. They've been taken out of the play. They are no longer participating in the play. And of course, they are looking down on those that are participating in the play and saying, well, the ones in the world are the ones in the delusion, and in the little bubble is the only truth. And it's exactly the other way around. But that is why they want you in there, to take you out of the way, so you no longer participate. And I said it is not a spiritual practice, or because it creates no change. A true spiritual practice would create a change. It is the interaction of the spirit with the all to create a material reality. And those little bubbles create nothing. Absolutely change nothing. And as I said, you have to keep taking drugs, you have to keep starving yourself to death, you have to keep meditating the hell out of this to maintain that state. and it doesn't change anything around you. Now, the teachings of Neville Goddard and the teachings of Jesus, which pretty much spoke of the same thing. They used slightly different words, but they said the same thing. And that is creating a change in reality through the power of what Jesus said was prayer. He used the word prayer. It's just a label for something that you do. And it is really the practice of, well, Goddard said it is your imagination, yeah? And go to the outcome. Assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Jesus said, whatsoever you ask for in prayer, know that you have received it. Be already in a state of knowing that you have received it and it will be yours. They were both saying the same thing. Go to the outcome. All your energy on the outcome. Now, as I said, where I would disagree with Neville Goddard is he said it was imagination. Imagination is a tool that you use in visualizing the outcome, yes. But it is not the driving force. I've heard, again, another true reading of a true text by Walker William Atkinson, and he said it is 3 parts, and the first part is desire. Desire, faith, and works. So your imagination is actually the works. It is something that you do to enhance the feeling of the wish fulfilled. It is a tool. But the driving force is desire. Always is. Even in prayer, whatsoever you ask for in prayer, what you desire, yeah, know that you have received it. Now, the misdirection that was in religion, again, driving you past the point of truth, what you should actually be doing, and what you should have faith in. You should have faith, you should know that you will receive it. That is the point of faith. You have to know that you have actually, not that you will receive it, that you have received it already. You have to be in that state of reception, of receiving. And that is what you need to have faith in, that it will happen. You know it will happen. That is the point of faith and what you should have faith in. And there was a redirection in religion, because in religion you have to have faith in Jesus, or in God, or some entity, being, that will give to you. And that is the misdirection. I found myself last Friday in a church, which doesn't happen too often these days, but I was at a memorial service for that little boy that died earlier this month. And I heard the preaching there, and it was exactly that misdirection. You have faith in Jesus. We all have faith in Jesus. Which actually, when you see the truth of what he taught, especially what he said about prayer, believe on the outcome. Yeah, believe that you will receive it. That is what he said. That is what he taught. And that is the faith that he was speaking about. He wasn't talking about himself. In that service that I was in, they were talking about the story of the people in the boat. Yeah, when they all go into the boat to go to the other side of the lake, and the boat gets into a storm. And Jesus is asleep in the boat somewhere, and the disciples wake him up. And he rebukes the storm, and there's a dead calm. And then he turns around to them and say, "Where is your faith?" Or where was your faith? Where was your faith? Yeah? Which, of course, the pastor obviously said, well, they had no faith in Jesus. Well, they obviously had, because they woke him up to do it. Yeah, they had full faith that he would do it, But he was asking them, where was your faith? Yeah, what the hell are you waking me up for? Why did you not rebuke the storm? I taught you. I taught you all these things. So where is your faith in that situation? Why did you not do it? Same happened in the stories of when they were healing the sick. Yeah, and disciples come running to him and say, we can't drive out that demon. And Jesus said, you of little faith, where is your faith? Where is your knowing that it will happen? Yeah? I said, at that point he was actually, I think, losing the rag with him. His rag with him. He was really getting irate about the whole thing. You know, how long shall I be with you? Does it not sink in? But here again, there is the misdirection. That you have to have faith in another entity, and that is religion. It's faith in another entity, whether that's God. I mean, the biblical gods, even in the Old Testament, and what is still, because it is a continuation from the Old Testament, the gods in the Bible are clearly beings. It's not talking about the all. Yeah, it's not talking about the creator of all. They're just beings that pretend to be the creators of all, of that tell you they are the creators of all. They're not. No one being is. But the gods of the Old Testament are clearly beings, and more than that, they're solid beings. If you read the text, the angels are solid beings. If you read, they're not spiritual anything, you know, out of body things. They're not. They eat, they drink, they wash the dust of themselves. Yeah, they're not washing the dust of their energetic body. They're not eating bread and honey in their energetic bodies. They're solid. But yeah, that is the misdirection, that you are receiving of a solid being. Where you're not. You're receiving of the all. And you must know that you have received it. You must know that that is how it works. Full faith. And that is how the mechanics are of this matrix. The true mechanics of this matrix. And then when I say, and others will say, you know, you receive of the all, what we're actually saying is we haven't got a clue what, what it is you're receiving of. We don't. That's the thing, we do not know. The word all, you use the word all, and then the teaching will obviously tell you the all cannot be known. So when you say when I'm saying you're receiving of the all, I'm saying I haven't got a clue where it's coming from. I only know that it is coming, because again, that is how we know the truth, because we can see its effect in this world. It creates something in this world. It creates a change in this world. It creates a change in solid reality. And then you know it was a true spiritual workings. If they proclaim something out there that you do not know, that you do not see, you must have faith that it is real, even though it does create no change anywhere and you cannot see it. Don't go there. That is deception. If it's truth, it will show itself in this world. So, that was the first misdirection of religion, which again led people to becoming non-player characters, Christians and other religions. They're sitting there on their arse waiting for Jesus to come back and do it for them. For myself, I can do nothing. I can't. Which is a lie. You can. And the way was shown. And again, in the teaching of Jesus, it always says there were witnesses to those occurrences. Now, fair enough, 2,000 years ago, it'd be a bit hard to ask those witnesses now. But also Neville Goddard He never said, I'm just saying these things and you must believe them, but he is pointing to occurrences, to people that had actually happened to in this world. There's proof. They're offering proof. As I said, with Jesus 2,000 years ago, a bit hard to find those witnesses, but for the individual things that happened, healing, for instance, those things are still happening in this world. Those things still were already happening before Jesus brought it to awareness or showed a way to work it. Yeah, it was already happening. People already had that knowledge, and they already created changes in this world. So no, you do not have to ask people 2,000 years ago. Ask people to whom that is happening now, because it's already still here. So, but misdirection onto your receiving of an entity or a person, that is what you must have faith in. Your faith is in the wrong point. Faith in the person, where the faith should be on the outcome. That is where your faith should be, your knowing. And you should not desire to know Jesus. You should desire to have the feeling of the wish fulfilled, whatsoever you desire in life. Of course, they're directing you should desire to know Jesus. Again, there's another misdirection. It is saying whatsoever you ask for. Yeah? And don't ask to know Jesus. Ask if you need a car, ask for a car. If you need a house, ask for a house. If you want a new job, if you have the desire for a new job, ask for a new job. That is what you should be asking for. If you want healing, ask for healing. Do not ask for Jesus. Ask for the thing that you desire. So again, first way, that misdirection is obviously crumbling at the moment. Religion is falling to pieces. Rightly so. So they've created a new misdirection, which is the New Age teaching. Yeah? Where they just put you into little bubbles and you can float away into a pink sky feeling really good. Whilst again, nothing is changing around you. Not a spiritual practice. A spiritual practice would create a solid change, and that doesn't. So, okay. And one more thing, I was directed again to listen to James True, and that's the other thing that is going on, where he's talking about esoteric and all these great teachings, and then he talks about the story again where Jesus basically created a new pair of eyes for a guy that was blind. That's what the story says. And again, it created an actual physical change in this world. And James True and others, they proclaim the Spirit, they proclaim the great teachings, but they will not believe that something actually happened. Yeah? Oh, no, this is not talking about he created new eyes. The man was never blind. This was all a deception. Jesus could see right through his lies. Stuff like that. They're absolutely, whilst proclaiming all these great spiritual teachings, they're absolutely adamant that supernatural things do not happen. So that there's somebody who's got a split personality. Yeah. Proclaiming the Spirit, but denying the power thereof. And you must believe in the power thereof. Absolutely. Otherwise, there's absolutely no point in even going to the Spirit. Spiritual teachings are there to create a change, to create a reality. You're saying, oh, so spiritual, but no, it doesn't actually, supernatural things don't happen. Well, then there's no point in you even being there, in that teaching. But I think Carl Jung said, man is afraid of its own divinity. And to a point, actually, we should be. And that is, we're now coming to the downside. That was the upper, now comes the downer, because there's two sides to everything. And that is something that Neville Goddard has not addressed that at all. And the Bible, that the New Testament does address it kind of in places, but you really have to see it. It's not spoken about in a big way. And that is, again, what we're concentrating on is the outcome that is outside of us. Yeah? But before, and here comes, the change does not actually happen outside of us, it happens inside of us. There's a change of us that brings the other thing about. It is addressed in the New Testament when Jesus said, "Seek ye the kingdom within first, and all of those things will be added on to you." So what is happening outside, the new car, the new house, power, glory, money, wealth, whatever, are the outer manifestations of an inner change. And here is what is happening to you first. And here is, again, I want to correct myself there, because I said we say, and it is folklore, that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. That is to say, a man is corrupted by what is happening on the outside of him. He's corrupted by the money, he's corrupted by the power. And I think we have cause and effect the wrong way around. Man is not corrupted by the money or by the power. The money and the power are an outward manifestation of a corruption that has already happened inside of the man himself. Inside first. And then you see the fruits of their spirit. And that is really, I think, what we must keep very much in mind. What is happening to us during those spiritual practices? What are we turning into? We are the ones that are changing. And another way of looking at it is where you see the power, you see the obscene. I mean, it's not, wealth and health is not wrong. You should desire that. It is the obscene amount of wealth that is beyond anything that anybody could possibly need, and it is beyond reason what they own. Yeah, and they're still gathering more onto themselves. And the amount of power that they have over others is wrong. Yeah? And for the longest time, for the last 2000, as long as this religion is in being, we're being told that these outward trappings of power and wealth are a sign of greatness, or a sign that they've been blessed of God. Well, actually, the entity that wants to have power and dominion, again, driven by desire, power and dominion over everything. Yes, they may have been blessed of that one. But that one is also corrupted. It is a corrupt desire. So, again, we've been told they are blessed by God, or it is a sign of greatness, when in fact it is a sign of corruption. It is an outward showing of corruption, not of greatness. There's something wrong inside of those people. And again, driven by desire, by their own desire that changed them. So I've said for the longest part, be careful what you wish for. And you should be careful about what it is you're wishing for. You should consider what it turns you into. And that corruption that I'm talking about is way beyond the material. And again, the Bible, as I said, the New Testament does in some way address that, especially in that wonderful one-liner that is in Mark 8. What does it profit man if he gains the entire world but loses his soul? It's the corruption of the soul through desire. Everything can work in two ways. Desire can work in a good way. Absolutely, it can create healing, it can create good situations by changing bad situations. It can do that. It can work for good. But I think the trick is really knowing where to stop. Because if you go too far, you're going into corruption. And that corruption will show itself again in this world. It will show itself in your body, in your mind, and what is around you. And then, we must not mistake that for greatness, because it is not. Now, one last thing, and that is really what should aid us, because we were made to navigate this. And that's another thing I heard in this church service, which really stuck with me when I thought about it. Is actually a great way of putting it, and that was actually Psalm 139:14. We are fearfully and wonderfully made. We were fearfully and wonderfully made, and that is it. We are fearfully made. We are made full of fear. And we were wonderfully made. We were made full of wonder. And here it is. There is the expansion, the wonder, the wondering what is going on, finding information, finding solutions, finding, knowledge of how this whole thing works. That is our wonderfully side, our wonder. Where we look outwards, looking to know more at every stage. So we are wonderfully made, curious, full of wonder, seeking all the time. But we're also fearfully made, and fearful is the restraining force. Yeah, the knowledge that there may be danger, that should at least slow us down and make us careful in what it is we're doing. So we are made of both sides. And really, between the expansional force and the restraining force, that is what is called reason. That is our reasoning, the reasoning of possibilities and of consequences. That is true reason, enlightened reason. There's enlightenment. That is enlightenment. The consideration of both sides, of all sides, is enlightenment. And we were made to do that. We have the capability of doing that. Again, you do away with fear. You're going into denial of a part of yourself. Suppressing fear, no more knowledge of danger, and no, you're not enlightened, you're a fool. You're no longer in reason, you're becoming unreasonable. And being just in fear, obviously you're restrained you're imprisoned. You cannot go outside to wonder about what might be there because you're held back by fear. So the correct balance between the two within yourself is reason, is enlightened reason. And that is where we must go. So, yes, AI is rewriting spiritual texts at this moment as we speak. New Age is a misdirection, so is religion. The truth, or at least one truth, the power of prayer, is one way of interacting with what we don't actually know. We don't know what we're interacting with. We cannot fathom it. But we will know that it is there because we see results in the solid world. And only if there is a result in the solid world will we know that there was truth in the spiritual teaching. As I say, you can go with Neville Goddard, you can go with Jesus, the power of prayer. There may be other ways of interacting with whatever it is we're in. But if you found a way and that way works for you, go with it. And I say, be aware of the pitfall. Absolutely be aware of the pitfall, because whatever you desire, the change occurs in you first. And then think very hard of what your desire will turn you into before it manifests in this world. Right, I leave it at that for today. This is where I'm at the moment, and I leave it at that for today. And I talk to you again soon. Bye.